Good morning. So my name is Mario Campos. I'm president here at IntelliSite, and we're almost ready here for our webinar with our friend Ray Clounch from Cradlepoint. We'll perhaps give it another moment here. Ray, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, Mario, thank you. Ray Clounch. I'm a senior partner solution architect at Cradlepoint. I've been here over 6 years with Cradlepoint and been working with IntelliSite for quite a few years. So thanks for the invite, Mario.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Really excited to be sharing the floor today with you, Ray. I know we go back a few years, good friends, so definitely this is exciting. Appreciate you joining us.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So the topic for today, and appreciate everybody joining. We're really excited at IntelliSite. We are many things. We've been in business for 20 years, and so through time, we've been working with many cities, many agencies across the country. And what's amazing is we've really developed a set of use cases that really resonate with a lot of these municipalities, right? And so we've definitely, we've been working very closely with Cradlepoint and their team, an amazing group. They're really embedding a lot of their solutions into our products, right? And so as of today, I consider IntelliSite an AI company, right? We've grown to about 250 people, and out of that group, we have over 40 developers dedicated to AI. We are a hardware manufacturer. We actually manufacture our own hardware. We have 2 manufacturing facilities in the U.S. and one in Latin America. But I think more importantly, we are a company dedicated to being a service provider for smart community solutions, right? And that's pretty unique. I think that's something that many people haven't heard about yet, and it's something that's a new trend, and we're helping many agencies address the issues that they're coping with, either on the criminal side or perhaps providing Wi-Fi for citizens or making their intersections smarter and safer. And so that's a lot of the topics you'll be hearing about today. One in particular I'd love to highlight, and you'll be seeing some videos and material around the city of Riverbank. City of Riverbank is a city out in California. They've been really pioneers working with us for several years, implementing many solutions around public safety, again, crosswalk safety, intersection traffic analytics. And as of today, we have a pretty big rollout of license plate recognition throughout the city. And what's nice is, in the years that we've been working with City of Riverbank, which is, a fairly smaller city, we've captured over 60 million license plates up to today. So pretty impressive. They've been able to solve many issues, many crimes with our system. And again, I'm just so excited to be sharing that Cradlepoint is an integral part of our solution, right? Without Cradlepoint, this would not be possible, right? We rely on their products to get our units out at our intersections, areas that are hard to reach, right? Sometimes we're closing lanes to get our equipment installed. And so we need that hardware, the gateway in particular, 4G and 5G, to be solid and for us to be able to rely on that. And so you'll be hearing a lot about that today. So with that, a little bit of history on the company. Again, we started 20 years ago. We just turned 20 years old last month. And, I mentioned we have over 250 employees. We have, several offices in the U.S., Latin America, of course. We just relocated our headquarters to South Carolina, close to Fort Mill, close to Charlotte. And we continue operating in California, of course, have many clients in California that we've been serving for 20 years. I talked about our AI developers, the fact that we have a command center that runs 24/7, right? So we're able to manage a lot of the alarms, a lot of the solutions that we're putting out in the field are being managed by our own command center. We have an ASPO contract, and thanks to Cradlepoint, we've been working through that process so that we're able to engage cities and counties and municipalities, state agencies, and be able to streamline the purchasing process, right, through an ASPO national contract. And I love to say that we are a single source solution provider, right? From beginning to end, we come in, we do the design, we help you realize what's needed at each of these cities, and the end result is being able to address the outcomes and be able to solve the issues that cities are looking for. So again, I talked about the history, 20 years in the making, right? We've had many ups and downs. I think 2020 was a great year for us in particular. I mean, I know there was a lot of challenges with COVID, but it really allowed us to redesign our company, bring in some new products, we actually partnered with a private equity firm last year, and that really has allowed us to continue expanding into the country, nationwide, of course, and international. And as of today, we are a group just dedicated to providing the solutions you're going to be hearing about today, for sure. And with that, what I'd love to do is basically show you some of the deployment scenarios. I'd love to start by showing you exactly what the product looks like out in the field, how we're installing it, and then we're going to dive into a little bit of, of course, how we're leveraging Cradlepoint to make this happen and how cities are benefiting from these solutions, right? And so what you're seeing here is basically what we call the UIG, the Universal IoT Gateway. This is basically a box that we manufacture in-house, right? This is where we're embedding the Cradlepoint, and we're relying heavily on either the IBR 900 for the normal situations where we're doing license plate recognition, or AI, looking for people loitering around parks or common areas, and that's provides great throughput. And we've been relying on the IBR 900 for many years now, and also the IBR 1700 for larger scale applications, right? Areas where we're needing multi-radio communication, or carrier aggregation in higher capacity. And so that's definitely been the default configuration for us. And one in particular I'd love to highlight here on the left-hand side is the actual UIG mounted on a pole. That would be what a city or a community expects to see out in the field. And you see a blue blinking light at the bottom. That's a pretty bright LED blue light that turns on usually at night, and it lets people know that there's police presence, right? And normally what happens, people come to a park, they look at that blue light, they see the police logo on the UIG, which is reflective, and they go somewhere else, right? They know that there's police presence and someone's watching.
So
Ray,
Mario,
anything you'd love to add here?
yeah, Mario, can you talk a little bit about the speaker that's next to the blue light and what that's used for?
Absolutely, great question. So, as part of every UIG, we usually deploy a loudspeaker, and that really allows our team in particular, our agents from the NOC, to do voice downs and basically deter a criminal activity or let someone know that they're being monitored. We do a lot of work with cities in terms of handling illegal dumping, for example, which is a pandemic on its own. Just cities like Oakland, for example, that they spend about $8 million a year just handling illegal dumping. And so we're getting these units out in the field. And what's nice is the UIG has all the AI built in, and we work closely with NVIDIA and Intel, right, to leverage their processing power within the UIG to handle the AI. And then our agents, when they see criminal activity or something that needs to be handled, they use the voice down on the loudspeaker.
Awesome. And then, yeah, Mario, also, you mentioned a while ago, the fact that the 1700 could do dual modems, which means we can do multiple carriers. So you guys have a relationship with all the carriers, with FirstNet. How are you guys handling all that? Do you take care of all that for the customer?
Yeah, great question. So definitely, I mean, we work closely with Verizon, AT&T, and some of the other carriers, and we're definitely carrier agnostic from that perspective, right? And so what ends up happening is we built a relationship usually with the wireless representatives in each of those areas, and that's a great leverage point because we want to build that rapport, right? So that when a city comes on board, they implement our products. We normally work with the city and the wireless representative for that community to send us the SIM cards. We do all the onboarding, the staging in-house. So when we get these units out in the field, they're fully configured, and we just have an electrical contractor or one team, from our installation team out there hanging these units. Usually it takes about 3 hours to install, and we walk away and the system is up and running.
Awesome.
Perfect. Great questions, Ray. Thank you. So here's a closer look at the UIG in particular, and as you can see, the Cradlepoint right in front of you, right? When you open that box, we're very proud of our partnership with Cradlepoint. They've been a tremendous partner, and what I really appreciate about their products is the durability of it, right? The fact that we can rely on these gateways to carry the data, right? The last thing you want is for one of these units to go up on a pole. And again, what I mentioned before, sometimes we have to close a whole intersection and stop traffic late at night to do an install, right? We get these units in the field. We need that communication to be solid. And that's one of the reasons, we've been partnering with Cradlepoint for so many years, and we've had such great success doing that.
So Mario, the Cradlepoint's going inside this box, and you've got a lot of other players that are involved with this. So everything is pre-configured, right, correct, before they even heads out to the field. It's tested. The Cradlepoint device is talking to NCM. You're verifying that everything is working before the crew goes out, correct?
Absolutely. That's one of the key aspects of our product, the fact that we do all the staging in-house. And one of the advantages of using cellular communication is that you kind of cut down on the unexpected, right? When you're out in the field, you know that that unit was working. We take it through a burn-in process. We test every component. All the IP addresses are in place. Everything's configured. Sometimes we even have the client be able to access those cameras from their desk at the office prior to even having those units out in the field. So we test that scenario. When we're out installing, we know that we're going to walk away and the system is going to work.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect, awesome. And here's, I'd love to highlight just really first what our deployment looks like currently, at least out in the U.S. We have over 2,000 units, UIGs in the field that are currently being monitored. We work with cities, utility companies, power companies, water, managing, either substations that need to be monitored or city parks. We do a lot of, some projects out in the West with agencies like Fry and Water, for example, very well-known agency in California that manages, a long stretch of the water canal. So a lot of that takes place. And thanks to the UIG and definitely the Cradlepoint that's embedded, our NOC usually processes about 5,000 alarms per month, right? And those alarms are, from things like somebody trying to break into a substation or perhaps somebody dumping garbage at a city park, things of that nature. And so there's definitely a lot of work that our NOC is doing on a daily basis. And what I love to highlight is really the benefits of why we work with the Cradlepoint. Right, I mentioned the ruggedized gateways, the RBI 900 and the 1700 as top of mind, but we're also leveraging the NetCloud management and NetCloud perimeter, right? With NetCloud perimeter, we basically build a software-defined network, a virtual network across every UIG so that our NOC has easy access to those units from a management perspective and monitoring of the alarms, but we can also create a subset, basically a secondary network for each of our clients to have direct access to their cameras and be able to see those units out in the field. And then, of course, we leverage SDKs, right, within the Cradlepoint. We have access to their API in the cloud. And what's great is, definitely Cradlepoint is the leader in pathway to 5G, right? We're so excited to be able to leverage Cradlepoint and the 5G products that they have. And, we're happy to mention we've been one of the first companies in the U.S. to be deploying 5G out in the field, especially for video surveillance. And so, again, just very proud of the items you have here on the screen and working with Cradlepoint in that sense.
Yeah, Mario, one thing I would like to add to this is that, Cradlepoint's just released the first 5G ruggedized system, the R1900. And I know that you're going to be incorporating that into your newest versions of your product. Where do you see 5G going in the future? We know the AT&Ts and Verizons and T-Mobiles continue to expand their 5G deployment. But, today you're running our gigabit modems in our 900 and 1700. But do you see even more items topped on part of your product as far as with 5G because you're going to get better performance? Where do you see that going?
Absolutely. So first off, just the performance, right? I mean, we've been able to clock in on 5G 1 gigabit connections and more, right, at some of these UIGs. And that's tremendous opportunity for video. And the reason is that we can do basically with our product and the fact that we manage our own IntelliSite Deep Insights platform, we create basically a software fabric from the edge to the cloud and sometimes to what's called MEC, the multi-access edge compute, right? That's basically an area that's basically a mini data center, right, placed somewhere in a customer premise or somewhere nearby. And so what we're doing is we're relying on 5G to pull in data as quickly as we can into that MEC environment or the cloud and be able to do additional processing through the fabric that we're establishing between the UIGs and the backend. And so definitely a lot of opportunity. We also see a lot of opportunity using 5G from a private LTE or private 5G perspective, right? So we have, we're working on projects for smart manufacturing, for example. We just deployed the first Industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing platform in Mexico for a company called Cemex. And they are, worldwide, they're one of the largest cement manufacturers in the world. And we dropped in our UIGs on the factory floor, and now we're leveraging those technologies to bring in information from the PLCs, be able to add AI to IoT data, and give them metrics on the performance of the factory floor. So definitely pathway to 5G is real, and it's something that's a big future, a bright future for all of us.
One thing that we're noticing is that the private networks, private LTE networks and 5G are kind of running hand in hand today. We're getting a lot of interest from cities deploying private networks, right, just so they can deploy these type of solutions that you have out there today. And the nice thing about it is that the Cradlepoints do support both, right? Like the R1900 will support private LTE as well as 5G. So they have two options to go with where they can future-proof their products moving down the line. So.
Absolutely. Great point. In terms of public safety, you mentioned FirstNet or Frontline, right, from Verizon. I mean, these are top of mind for a lot of these officials, right, especially as they're working through situations where we may be kind of flooding those networks, right, with a disaster or any situation, an event perhaps. Cities definitely appreciate having that extra capacity to access the video when they need to.
Well, you're hearing the term anchor a lot these days, where you're able to anchor using another technology. So when you're looking at 5G, you're going to anchor it with something else. So in some cases, we're seeing they're doing it with a private network, or they're doing it with something like a private LTE network itself. So it could go carrier or private LTE as an anchor to what is being deployed today. So they always have their services up, right? We're all about the continuity play here at Cradlepoint for sure, but when you're dealing with these type of critical situations like you're putting out there, that's making sure that the neighborhoods are safe and those type of things, you want to make sure that you're always up and running 24/7.
Absolutely, that is the case. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to mention just a couple of things here, and really what makes up our solution, right? So we have 5 critical components. Computer vision, definitely, first on the list. We do a lot of the AI at the edge, right? So the beauty of it is that we're able to do the inference on the video of the AI within the UIG, and that's pretty unique, right? That's something that most companies have to pull that video out to the cloud to be processed. In our case, we're doing it at the edge, right? And that allows us to deploy this behind a 4G connection, right? That's a great thing. The other aspect is Internet of Things, right? IoT is very real. We have over 140 different types of sensors that currently communicate with the UIG. So we're doing things like vibration sensors, temperature, humidity. We're going into hospitals, deploying maybe 6 or 8 of these UIGs in a hospital in their electrical closets and adding density for sensors so we can monitor cold storage, for example, temperature, humidity. Vaccine management is top of mind for many of these hospitals, and we're deploying this as we go, right? I mean, these are wireless sensors where sometimes even the IT department is the one placing those sensors in the freezers, right? A fairly easy process. Enterprise management on the lower left, and that's really our Deep Insights platform. That's where we're managing both the UIGs from a fleet management perspective, as well as providing management platform for the customers so they can see their data, right? So they can go back and create trends and look at reports, correlate information from multiple sources, and be able to really analyze and be a little more predictive, right, around their business and their outcome. We talk about managed service, right? The fact that our team goes out in the field, we have a nationwide coverage, and so we're the ones installing it. We're the ones really leveraging, either contractors locally or working with the cities, with their public works department, going out in the field and really getting these units installed, as well as day 2 support, meaning that we stay behind it and really supporting moving forward. And then of course connectivity and best-in-class 5G and the Wi-Fi. And something we're seeing, for example, with cities is the digital divide, right? And needing to provide public Wi-Fi access at city parks and other public areas. Perfect. And with that, what I'd love to do is kind of dive into how we make this happen, right? When we work with cities, counties, and basically public sector in general, we see multiple what we call buyer personas, right? These are the folks within those communities or the agencies that are really engaging closer and really understanding their needs and what they're after, right? And so we see, for example, chief of police or law enforcement in general, right? And they have several needs, right? License plate recognition being one of them and a very common one. In our case, our LPR solution is connected to the Department of Justice, and that means we can run every license plate live against a national database to get a hit on a stolen vehicle, Amber Alert, anything of that nature, right? So as you work closely with us and our sales team, we have specific collateral around every one of these personas. We move on to parks directors, right, within the cities and counties. They're really concerned with making sure that parks are safe, that we're providing a good experience for folks coming into parks. What's interesting with parks and the directors there, it's usually where they say, well, issues are not as critical, and parks kind of get to be in a second seat in a way until something happens, right? When there's a crime, or unfortunately we see several homicides at parks, and all of a sudden this is top of mind for every official in that city. And the reason is the parks are really the interaction between the city and the constituents, right? And so we will make sure that those are safe. Transportation manager is another one. So we have a whole solution around intelligent transportation, using AI at intersections to basically monitor traffic congestion, to look for jaywalking. Something that's very unique that we use the AI is to track near-hit accidents, right? Things that would have been an accident, it was never reported, nobody got hurt, but the city still wants to understand those near-hit accidents, right? And why they're being, that's causing issues. And so when we look through the AI for those conditions, we tag the video, we track it as a near-hit accident. A city official can always go back and click on that video and go straight to that clip and see exactly what happened, right? Same for public works managers. They're concerned with illegal dumping, with protecting their water agencies or the water infrastructure, or handling the equipment yard, right? They get a lot of break-ins at the corporation yard for the city or county, people coming in after hours, stealing equipment out of their facilities. And so we do a lot of deployments around public works in the sense of deploying UIGs around the perimeter of the facility and being able to protect those. And the last one I'd like to touch on is HOA and property managers, right? Homeowners associations. Once we establish a relationship with a community, then the homeowners associations have a lot of interest to leveraging the technology that the city and county are using to make sure that those officials have access to the video and the data that's being produced from their locations, right? And so we end up establishing what's called a public-private partnership, where an HOA will sponsor the cost of our service, and in return, public safety gets access to it, and you have a good relationship moving forward. Perfect. So moving forward, we like to say that we really concentrate on three categories within our smart communities, as creating a safer community, of course, and we talked about that, crime reduction, being able to voice down someone that's doing something illegal in the city or county. Then we move on to a smarter community. Right now we're providing metrics, being able to measure traffic congestion. What was the traffic level when people start doing jaywalking, for example, and what really led to that situation? So a lot of smarts around what we're producing from a metadata perspective and what cities are leveraging, right, from their perspective. And then more connected community, right? We talked about 5G, about providing public Wi-Fi out in public areas. And so, the digital divide is a big deal, right? That's something that has been very visible, especially as we're coming through this pandemic. And so cities are now very concerned with being able to provide all the security and the smarts at the parks, as well as providing public Wi-Fi. Ray, anything from your side?
Yeah, a question. When you're working with cities today, and for instance, Riverbend, for instance, do you see other cities working together to put some of these solutions together where they can actually access each other, especially if they got certain situations going on?
Absolutely, a great point. So, and that is definitely the case. Riverbank is a great example. Riverbank, we started with Riverbank, within the county. Then we started working with the neighbor cities because they realized, and what's funny is, you chase the problem somewhere else. Right now the neighbor says, how come you threw the problem my way? So now they need the same technology. And then all of a sudden we have the county stepping in and really realizing that they can create a county coalition, right, where they're sharing LPR data, they're looking at metrics, they're looking at traffic congestion across the entire county. And so what's interesting is now we're establishing a big relationship with the county itself. And they're they're actually working on assigning developers from the county to start ingesting data from our system so that they can make better use of that. So that's always great. It's something, there's always a lot of organic growth, right, within the accounts.
Okay.
Perfect. So what I'd love to do here is I'm going to share actually a video that we recently were able to record with the city of Riverbank. And something I'd love to mention is with every city we work with, what we like to do is we like to get a message from each of the officials from the city, and then we create what's called a microsite, or we call that a citizen engagement program. And that is basically a dedicated micro website that we create for the city or county. And then we post on signage on each location where we have those UIGs. We have a QR code. And so cities kind of struggle with the big brother mentality, right? And so what happens is we're helping these cities and counties really get the message out. I mean, we've had cities go to the extent of doing knocking door to door around communities, handing out flyers and letting people know why cameras are coming into their community, right? So that's one thing that we're really working hard to establish. And so Riverbank, I'm going to share a couple of the videos here, and you'll hear the message from the police chief as well as the city manager. So I'm going to hit play.
This camera system we have in town, they're strategically placed at all the major thoroughfares in town, and they have the ability to read license plates that we can go back and use to solve crimes, and it's been very successful into solving a lot of our retail theft crimes, not only from criminals that have visited our area, but criminals that have come from outside areas to here, and neighboring agencies were able to help them as well and solve several cases.
We partnered with IntelliSite primarily initially because they were a local company that had a proven track record of camera systems locally. We ultimately implemented a fairly comprehensive citywide license plate reader system on almost all major intersections and entrances and exits to the community.
We're extremely pleased with the system. It's a force multiplier for us. It allows us basically to have more eyes out in the streets without adding more police officers in place. It solved numerous crimes, like I mentioned earlier, not only criminal in nature, but non-criminal things such as missing persons. It solved hit and run, collisions. It solved traffic accidents, determining what happened and who was at fault. And overall, it's just been overwhelmingly successful for us.
Great. So hope you enjoy that. That's definitely the feedback we get from most of our customers, right? They're able to solve a lot of crimes, especially providing police augmentation right around the community with limited resources. Perfect. So moving on, we like to say that we provide the most complete solution, right? You heard that we provide our own hardware, we manufacture our own UIGs, and of course with the help from Cradlepoint to embed their gateway into every product. We also have our own sensors, and those, as I mentioned, there's over 140 different types of sensors, all battery operated, wirelessly communicating back to the UIG. We do all edge computing, right? And we talked about AI either within the UIG or at the MEC, right, where we can leverage like Dell servers, for example, with the NVIDIA GPUs to do all the processing, or Intel, right? So we can process existing cameras from cities, be able to retrofit solutions that are already in place and make them smarter. In the middle, we talk about IoT and AI, right? We have a reporting platform, basically our own video management system. We do visualization on the dashboards. We also have our rules engine in case you want to create some alarms, do SMS, emails, things of that nature. And then, of course, we talked about the NOC and being able to respond to alarms 24/7.
Mario, what's the average size of a deployment for you guys?
That's perfect. So I like to say that any project is great, right? I mean, we normally see from 5 units, 10 units, up to 50 units on average. And so, what's great is for Cradlepoint, of course, there's a router in every one of those units. For the carrier, the same, right? Every carrier, and we work closely with Verizon, for example. And so there's always a data plan with every UIG, right? So that's the beauty of it is any city or county can start small, right? They don't need big infrastructure. You always hear about the agencies worrying about establishing all the back-end infrastructure to support the cameras. That is not the case with us, right? You start with one UIG, two UIGs, you prove it out, and basically start expanding from there. And what we normally see is that it's definitely a lot of organic growth. Like it continues spreading through the city, right, in many different needs.
So proof of concepts is you guys actually encourage that, correct?
Absolutely, yes. We love to work with cities and really understand the needs, right? There are situations like there's a city, Isle of Palms, we're working on right now out in South Carolina. It's a beach town. And so in their case, it's all about smart parking. It's a beautiful city, crime is low, but they're really struggling with the parking situation, right? And so in that case, the proof of concept, it's all around parking, being able to integrate it into the city's app, a mobile app that they already have. And so sometimes we prove out a lot of those conditions through the POC. And once we go into full rollout, then we know exactly what we're up against.
Okay.
Perfect. Great questions. So, I'd love to touch a little bit on what we call SCaaS, basically, or Smart Community as a Service, right? So you've heard a lot of what we do, and we're actually going to be jumping into use cases here in a moment. But the reality is that a lot of these cities and counties and agencies in general, they're limited in budget, right? They understand, or we understand, having worked with so many for so long, right, that we need to make this service affordable. And so what we've done is we've converted our entire offer from the hardware, the software, the AI, right, and of course the Cradlepoint embedded in the unit, all the way to the NOC, access to the platform as a monthly fee. That's affordable. It's only a few $100s a month for each of these locations, and cities benefit from this tremendously, right? And so I'd love to highlight that. And again, as you're seeing here on the screen, it's a predictable cost, right? It's something that they can accommodate. It's something that's easy to budget for. It's a turnkey solution, right? End to end. You don't have to bring any other vendors into the mix. We handle it from beginning to end. And it's a bundle solution, right? We offer the AI, IoT, and the connectivity, and it all goes together. And so we're very proud of the SCaaS offer, and we already have many cities benefiting from SCaaS. I also like to highlight our timeline, right? We normally see about a 30-day deployment or rollout timeline, fairly short, right? From a city that's interested all the way to having systems in place. Again, the installation only takes 3 or 4 hours. So being on site is a one-day install. The rest of it is a lot of planning, a lot of understanding where the units are going to go, and then the staging process, which we do in-house. But again, being in the field is usually a 1 or a 2-day install at most. And so with that, I'm going to jump into some of the use cases. And, I've highlighted smart parks as being the top priority for many of these agencies. And as you can see, I mean, the use cases are tremendous. I mean, there's a tremendous breadth of options, right, to choose from. And so we do things like in the parks, of course, the basic ones are security, are looking for what's called smash and grab. People that go park their car, they're enjoying the park without realizing there's a criminal smashing their window and grabbing all the stuff out of their vehicle, right? So we watch for that. We do people counting, car counting. We can do vehicle classification to know how many motorcycles, bicycles came through. In the case of people counting, we know how many children versus adults, even demographics, all that done through the AI. We do, for example, a lot of solar deployments in areas that are hard to access, with little infrastructure, especially for power. And that is the case for river access sometimes, or, reservoirs, lakes. We go out there and deploy the same UIGs with basically solar communication. We even go the extra mile with the sensors doing soil moisture monitoring, right? We're letting basically an agency know that they're overwatering their yards basically at some of these parks. And so what's great even for Cradlepoint is that then turns into adding a Cradlepoint for their Rainbird irrigation controllers, so that then they have remote access to the controller to be able to adjust and make modifications, as time goes and how they're getting that data from our platform. So with that, I'm going to dive into a couple of those within parks, right? So we talk about smart lighting, for example, and being able to control the lights from the same platform, so that, for example, if you have AI looking or detecting somebody arriving at the park, we can go back and turn on lights for that person as they're walking through that park, and 5 minutes after they left, we can go back and turn off those lights, right? Lighting, and especially street lights, happens to be one of the highest costs for many of these agencies, right, on a monthly basis. That's a huge OPEX expenditure just on power for the lights, right? So anything we can do to reduce that energy consumption is always a big plus. Same thing for license plate recognition. I talked about how we're capturing the plates, how we're running those plates live. We have many situations, as you heard from the police chief in Riverbank. They go back, if there's a crime, they go back and see who got back on the freeway minutes after, and pretty quickly you have suspects, right? You know who came in and out. They may detect that same person was there the previous day, maybe scouting the place. And so they rewind the video, they see who was in the vehicle, and you'd be surprised how many times, we're able to solve crimes in general, fairly quickly. The next two are basically smart parking, which, I mentioned earlier, and that's, again, a big priority. Cities, as people are getting out on the street again, they're suffering, and especially a lot of people working from home, right? A lot of people have relocated, and so the smaller communities have seen a tremendous influx of citizens, right, as part of the pandemic. And so that's putting a burden on many of these parks, and parking is definitely an issue. And so being able to, first of all, track parking information and post that information on the city's website, so that somebody visiting a park can go in either on the app or the website and realize how full that parking lot is and maybe choose a different one. That all affects, the overall experience of those citizens within the community. The other one I'd love to talk about is healthy living, right? The fact that we have these UIGs out in the field allows us to add additional sensors. Air quality is top of mind. We have cities concerned with, in the case of California, where I just relocated from, the fires that we've had. In some cases, I remember hearing from the mayor in Riverbank that he needed this information because at some point, air may even be a little toxic, right? And so they need to let the citizens know to stay inside, stay indoors, and avoid any outdoor areas for some time. We also add things like air quality or water quality monitoring, noise pollution, right? Citizens want to know what noise looks like, luminosity. So there's a whole range of sensors we can add as part of that healthy living experience.
Mario, quick question for you. The cities, would deploy this type of solution. Do the cities ever allow the users themselves to actually look at the cameras and what's going on? For instance, you mentioned the cameras at the beach right on the parking. Do they allow access via their website to the county or maybe the city to say, so they can see what's going on within the city itself and how traffic is and those type of things?
Absolutely. We like to be as open as we can, and cities are the same, right? They want to have an open door policy where they want to squash that big brother mentality as quickly as they can, right? And so even though some cameras may have limited access just because from a public safety perspective, they like to make sure that they are sharing certain video feeds through our microsite. And so they try to direct people to the microsite that we're building. And you're right, for a beach access, people want to know how busy it is. Am I heading in the right direction, right? Or I've heard from parks directors that they want parents to have access to cameras at baseball fields so that they know that if practice was canceled, then they know exactly who's out there and who's not, and they're able to communicate a lot quicker. So those camera feeds are usually made available. And the other aspect is that through our AI, we're able to do masking of certain areas within the video. So if a camera is capturing somebody's backyard perhaps or a front yard, we're able to go back on the AI and mask that out so that that video never makes it into the actual archive. And that's critical, right? That's basically, preserving just the the privacy really of the citizens. Perfect. So I think we talked about public Wi-Fi access, right? Smart parks. I love that picture on the lower left. Skate parks happen to be a tremendous target for criminal activity, right? Unfortunately, kids are out there underage drinking, tagging, graffiti. So that all takes place at skate parks. And so what's unfortunate is a lot of these skate parks happen to fall outside of a police route. So unless somebody's calling in a service call for a police officer to go out there, they normally do not patrol those areas, right? And so they rely on our products to be looking for those conditions. It usually happens late at night. We normally do a voice on the loudspeaker, let people know they're being monitored. If they continue on, then we dispatch 911 and we get officers out there. And what's great is our platform is all web-based, which means that it can be accessed from the NDCs, right? The laptops that are in the police cars have access to our cameras. So normally a police officer will park, a couple of blocks away. He's watching what's going on. He sees who's doing the underage drinking, who's holding the bottle. And soon enough, when they arrive, they say, well, the two of you can go home, two of you stay. And they know exactly what happened, right? They have all the information available.
So Mario, you just mentioned the police vehicle. You guys also are instrumental in working with the police departments and fire departments and putting Cradlepoints inside those vehicles as well. You mentioned so they could get access, that very access, right, out to the internet. So
absolutely. And as you know, Ray, I mean, Cradlepoint has built a tremendous business around mobility, right? You are critical to those public safety vehicles, ambulances, fire trucks, police cars. And so what's beautiful about this is leveraging what they already have, right? They already have communication in the vehicle. What else can they do with that, right? And so we see them being able to have access to the video feeds as a great plus to that infrastructure, definitely. So I love to just continue on looking for use cases, right? This is a pretty busy graphic, but I think it packs a lot of use cases. This is around law enforcement, right? And so, as I mentioned before, the personas, those buyer personas we're working with within the community, this really resonates. When we bring up these graphics and our collateral, if you reach out to our sales department and our team, we're happy to share that collateral. It's pretty extensive. It covers, for example, this graphic, and we go into detail on every use case and what we're doing to handle that, right? From regional airports, for example, a lot of cities and counties, they manage their regional airport. It may be unmanned, which means that people are coming in after hours, stealing the fuel out of the fuel islands, or looking for a stalled vehicle, or being able to partner with private entities, as I mentioned before, HOAs, and being able to have access to their video and in return be able to dispatch a lot quicker, right? We're working with agencies doing things like drones. Well, we already have several agencies that are using drones to serve warrants, right? So they're going out there. We have a connection from the drone down to the command vehicle where we have a UIG, and through a Cradlepoint, we're streaming that video back to a command center. And so they have basically a real-time crime center where they're watching these conditions and the events happening live, right? And they may have crime analysts back at the office really watching what's going on. So a lot of interaction with law enforcement, and we're doing a lot of work out there together with Cradlepoint, of course. And so I dive into, video monitoring. A good example is within the UIG, we're able to do what's called virtualization at the edge, right? So if there's a city that has a specific requirement for a video management platform, like a Genetec or Milestone, we're able to spin up a virtual machine within the UIG and support that operating system and the VMS platform that they're using, right? So we kind of come in and really complement what they have instead of rip and replace, right? We like to make sure that we embed and become part of the overall strategy for that city. Same thing, of course, I mentioned LPR before, and that's a big portion of LPR or law enforcement in general, right, and what they're doing there. Traffic violations, right, red light, running a red light, you see all the use cases, wrong way driving, people crossing over the yellow lines. These are all conditions that are not being cited on, but cities want to understand, right, at what point it drove vehicles to start crossing yellow lines, or what happened before people started jaywalking. So that's all critical, and that's information we're tracking through the AI. Same thing for illegal dumping, right? I mentioned Example is the city of Oakland, right? $8 million a year. That's a lot of money that they're spending. When we met with them, they had 3 crews around the city going around full time, picking up garbage, taking it to the landfill, paying a full price for disposal, and just spending money that could go somewhere else. And so that's a very effective program that really is now expanding into multiple counties within California. Intelligent transportation, again, a lot of information here. Now this takes us more into leveraging the cameras we have at the intersections to make better use of them, to make them smarter and really understand the traffic conditions, right? Having been deploying this for so long, we realized at some point that we were, installing UIGs and cameras at intersections, and it's hard to use AI for criminal activity, right? What do you look for at an intersection? And so we took a different route and really expanded our intelligent transportation offer, and we now have a complete solution around intelligent transportation. And again, we talked about crosswalk, intersection traffic analytics, and I always love to mention the case of the University of South Florida. We did a pretty large deployment out there where the university was very concerned with the conditions and the spike that they saw on crosswalk safety and basically pedestrian involved accidents. And so we deployed our units out there. We started understanding more of the data and working with some of our partners there, and of course Cradlepoint. And so they're realizing, which is interesting, it's all about millennials. Millennials, they started coming to the university, they're distracted on their phones, and so it was a lot of distraction-related issues. But, what's interesting is the university said, put together basically a task force from their engineering team to start ingesting the data that we're producing to make better use of that data and try to understand it better and try to optimize those intersections a lot more. So definitely, a lot to talk about intelligent transportation. Roadway analytics, digital signage, right? In the case of crosswalk safety, knowing that the UIG can communicate with sensors, what we do is we use AI to look for a pedestrian wanting to cross the street. We could go back and turn on digital signage 1,000 feet out and let vehicles know that you have a pedestrian on the road, right? And this really goes around what's called Vision Zero. Vision Zero is a worldwide initiative where cities are committed to reduce pedestrian fatalities and pedestrian accidents to 0 by 2030, right? And so that's a big commitment. A lot of the work that's being done up until now is really just understanding previous information, right? The statistics of accidents and really what has happened in the past. But not many agencies are really taking a forward look at this, right, and trying to figure out how to prevent it. And that's where we come in. We play a very active role in Vision Zero. Ray, anything from you?
No, I could definitely see this being used like in places like Vegas, definitely by the beach area where people are crossing all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very interesting technology. The digital signage, which has been around for a long time, but it's interesting that, to start sharing it in the cities itself about congestion and about the walkways as people get out more these days. So
absolutely, that's a great point. And then, as far as city facilities go, we handle a lot of copper theft. As I mentioned before, that used to be our top 2 use cases: illegal dumping and copper theft, and just agencies dealing with a lot of expenses related to copper theft. And same thing for perimeters. What you see down at the bottom is really just protecting perimeter of locations, right? Those could be water wells, pump stations, remote areas that need monitoring, that needs to be deployed rather quickly. And that's where the UIG and, of course, the Cradlepoint plays an integral role in that. So with that, I'm going to share a quick video here, and I'm going to show you exactly how is it that we're doing basically the smarts as it comes to pedestrian analytics and intelligent transportation. And so what you'll see is basically our AI is tracking every moving object, right? We're classifying, we're doing things like looking at the vehicles. Is it a bus? Is it a truck? You see a pedestrian on the road. There was that vehicle that was coming down and at a certain rate of speed, and the fact that there was a pedestrian right in front of that vehicle was alerted as a near hit. We're tracking average speed for an intersection. So a city can go back and look at a certain time of the day and figure out what was the average speed for every vehicle, right? I'm going to pause here for a moment, and you'll look at the dwell time. So we're tracking how long each of these pedestrians are waiting before they actually get a chance to cross the street, right? And we may realize that after so many seconds, they get aggravated, they cross anyway on a green light for vehicles, right? And that's a problem. So a lot of information that's being tracked using the AI. And again, a lot of this video is being processed locally within that UIG and transmitted over the Cradlepoint router on a 4G connection without having to really, utilize a lot of that data from a metadata perspective.
Mario, could you guys tie your system into the traffic lights themselves so the city could actually control them at the same time as they're seeing from this data?
Absolutely. Yes, there's a device that we can integrate. And for now, what we've done is really just getting a status of the light. So at least we know what the actual status is. Was it red, green, yellow when conditions occurred? But I think we're seeing a trend where cities are now realizing that they have a lot of value here, and they can actually start interacting with those lights. Same thing for existing traffic cameras, right? Many cities have traffic cameras, hundreds of them, and so we're able to go back and retrofit those cameras and make use of them so they don't have to be thrown out, right? Even though they may be lower quality, we can still do the AI and be very successful doing that. The other aspect is I'd love to share just a couple of screenshots of the actual dashboard, right? Remember, we have our own IntelliSite IoT platform called Deep Insights, right? So this is where we're driving a lot of that data to the platform. And so an agency, a transportation manager or somebody within the agency can come here and select different intersections, select, different categories, different types of events that they're looking for, and really start creating trends or analytics such as this one, right, where we're doing vehicle traffic counting. They can get a count on specific areas of the city. And what's interesting is a good example is the city of Riverbank. So when we met with them, we realized that they were spending about $200,000 a year having the county come in and do car counting once a year, right? And they did that once a year, a lot of expenses around it. And so that really didn't bring any more benefit to the city other than to have a count so that they can continue improving transportation. Now with our solution, we were able to divert those funds and be able to now give them up to the minute car counting, people counting, car classification. They know, how many large trucks have been through intersections, were they speeding, what was the average speed for those trucks. So a lot of intelligence that we're driving through the same solution and, at the same price, really, because what they're doing is just diverting those funds to apply them to the SCAS offer that we have. Here's just a couple of additional screenshots. Smart lighting, for example, you're able to control the lights, create schedules for lights, turn them off, dim down lights at certain times of the day. So a lot of information that's being managed through this platform. And again, the Deep Insights, we tell the story, right? We have all the information being driven here. We have a pretty open API to the point that we can actually interface into external systems, right? So we find that agencies are looking for ways to integrate into existing traffic systems they already use. And so we make that available through our Deep Insights and the what we call the rule chains engine, where we can actually make decisions both in the cloud as well as within the UIG, right? So if we see, for example, the person crossing the street and we're going to go turn on that signage, we do that locally. We don't actually round trip to the cloud and come back. We make that decision locally so that, in case there's a little disconnect, something happens with the connection, we can still make those decisions and still keep those folks protected. I love to highlight our IntelliCare offer, and we have a command center dedicated to this and being able to monitor those alarms. And what's amazing, and I love, just working with Cradlepoint, is that, as you can imagine, criminal activity drops during the day, right? Daylight, not a whole lot. And so our agents, what they're doing is using NetCloud Manager, using NetCloud Perimeter to go out, do updates on UIGs, keep an eye on things, make sure things are working great. And we're doing that, thanks to the integration we have with Cradlepoint. And then at night, these same folks turn into guards, right? Virtual guards. They're managing alarms, doing voice downs, calling police, and really escalating a lot of those alarms. And so it's a great way for us to leverage the technology, Cradlepoint, of course, and then being able to leverage the time of the agents out at the NOC. So I love to highlight just some of the logos we have, and again, we've worked with a few hundred of these locations, right? These are some big names here. Cradlepoint at the top of the list, Verizon, NVIDIA, and Intel, right? Big players in what we do from an AI perspective. A lot of cities and counties, and the list just continues growing. I think we've been extremely happy, and we're very thankful of the work that we're doing with Cradlepoint, and we just hope this will continue. Ray, any closing thoughts from your end?
No, Mario, it's fascinating technology. I mean, as AI continues to advance and as technology, today with 5G, and we've talked about private LTE, and camera technology continues to change, the things will just keep evolving, what you guys will be able to do. And I know your R&D team will continue to do that as well. So look forward to the next generation of your product.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ray. And Ray, any thoughts around 5G? I know that's a big topic and top of mind for Cradlepoint. Anything you'd love to share here with the group?
Yeah, a lot of people don't probably know that, Cradlepoint is the first one to deploy 5G. We actually deployed it in Australia. We've been running it there almost a year. We're getting ready to start deployments here in North America. We're working very closely with the Verizons, AT&T, and T-Mobiles of the year. And it keeps evolving. A lot of the North American telcos are trying to figure out where they fit in this. A lot of different technologies from a 5G perspective. You've got your user devices, right? Everybody's got their phones, and they're walking around getting, in some areas they're getting really fast speeds, some areas they aren't, and there's been a lot of complaints about that, right? So we're definitely focused on the business side of things, working with partners like yourself. We do everything through our partners when it comes to our products. So I think as you see, as the year continues on and as things start relaxing here after the pandemic, you're going to see more and more things happening from a 5G perspective. There's about to be some big announcements coming through on Cradlepoint soon. So I would definitely keep your ears out, and definitely if you got any other questions on it, reach out to your partner here at IntelliSite. They're happy to bring any of our Cradlepoint reps in and talk about what's going on from a 5G perspective. We have a lot of folks that can talk to that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, and to that, as you guys realize, the UIG is very modular, and so, the existing routers they're carrying a lot of 4G data, and we'll be ready for 5G as soon as that's widely available. And so the reality is, if there's any type of equipment upgrades, anything that's needed, of course, our team will handle that. We'll go out, replace, and as part of the SCAS, we would do that at no cost, right? We come in at a 5G radio, start benefiting from that. But the reality is that we've been doing this for so long that we know how to leverage existing technologies, right? 4G LTE is going to be here for quite a while, right? That's going to be supporting a lot of those gaps that 5G cannot cover. And so that's really where we come in. So, with that, I'd just love for anybody to reach out to our sales team, learn more about IntelliSite, Deep Insights, the UIG. Ray, I thank you for sharing the floor with me today. It's always great to see you, always exciting. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I hope you had a great time enjoying our presentation. And reach out to us, SCAS at IntelliSite.io, if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it.